There we go. I am live. Nope, I'm not live. Yes, I am live. Hi, I am here for Wednesday Live. So good news, the tiny tornado is, well, at least he doesn't have an ear infection that I know about. So we'll see. No fevers yet. No fevers yet. Nobody else is sick yet. I have been well for a solid 2.5 weeks. So yeah. Anyway, today I am going to start working on some pre-orders. So I have only so much time in the studio, and I thought, well, I'm here and I need to paint some things for some orders. So today you can watch me work on somebody's Fall Maples Rainbow order. So the first week of every month, I open up areas in my store called pre-orders, which are, it's pretty much anything that I dye or paint, and it allows you to go in and order the quantity you want, the length you want. If you want a solid color, I can dye it all at once, give you a singular dye lot. If you want something that's, yeah, like I said, not in stock or more than what I have in stock and you want it to match, this is a good time to place your order. I do it at the first week of every month, so that gives me a couple of weeks of studio work to get the yarn dyed, painted, and in the mail and sent to you. Typically, when I do my pre-orders, I also dye a little extra, so this is also the time that I will add a little bit more inventory to my shop. So I wanted to let's see, I want to introduce, I have a special guest with me today, and her name is Addie. Say hi, Addie. Hello. Addie, my son Liam informed me that Addie has really wanted to participate in the studio, and she wanted to have a little bit of fun today, so she's here to join us in our painting endeavors. So Addie's going to have this honorary seat next to all my dye stuff, and she will be hanging with us today. And I am going to try something new. I am now doing 12-yard warps. I'm only doing them for pre-order, so it's a longer warp than I typically wind. I don't think I'm going to be able to stock them as an in-stock item anytime soon, because I don't think I have it's just a lot more winding of yarn and a lot more inventory to keep in. So if you want the longer 12-yard warp, I just added that as an option to my warps. Hopefully I added it to all of them. We'll find out if somebody tries to order and it's not there. But the goal, if I did my website correctly, is that you should be able to order 12-yard warps. So after I'm done with this order and I get off this call, I'm actually going to be painting my first extra long warp, twice as long as I typically warp or dye. But I've had a little bit of trouble with, let's see if I can, my camera's going to want to orient itself in a way that I don't like. So we're going to, that's kind of it. Anyway, I have a roll of plastic wrap down here, and the yarn and the plastic wrap tend to get tangled around each other, and the plastic wrap tends to tear a lot and do a lot of things I don't like. So today I'm testing out using a drying rack to kind of pull the yarn, the undyed yarn, up and over the plastic wrap to see if that helps me roll it up with a little bit more ease than I typically have. So we'll see how that works. Hopefully that makes painting yarn a little bit easier. I'm still using scrap fabric to hold my microphone on my body. I have dreams of sewing a beautiful little pocket and embroidering, but with all that extra time. But I might need some pretty projects in my near future, so some things that I can carry with me. So maybe I'll make a sweet little pocket for this microphone. All right, here we go. We're going to do a little bit more bouncing as I hook up my phone to this stand. Excuse the bouncing and the reorienting, because my camera likes to be orienting itself in the landscape position no matter which way it's actually facing. Let's see if I can aim this a little bit better here. There we go. I think that's pretty close. So Addie, you ready? I think she's ready. Have a seat. Let's begin. This will be interesting to watch. You can come in at any time in this video. So this, for my Fall Maples Rainbow, I have 3 colors, which are essentially just red, yellow, and blue, with a little bit of a tone, a bronze tone to them, so that they're a little more earthy. So I have a color in my store called Fall Maples, and I have a color in my store called Fall Maples Rainbow. And the reason for that is Fall Maples was one of my very first consistent colorways that I offered in my shop. And one time my studio assistant was painting it for me, and she painted it in a different order than I typically paint it. And I thought it actually looked even better than usual. So I said, just keep going. I really like it. And so then I started offering it as an option in my shop. So Fall Maples Rainbow has all the colors on the rainbow because of the order it's painted in: red, yellow, blue, and repeat. And I can't really decide if I like one or the other more or less. I had intended on only carrying one of those colorways, but I really like them both. And they work for different reasons, so I have them both. There we go. Those are some big jars. I'm hoping to dye a few warps today before I have to leave, but we'll see how far I get. All right, Addie, I'm going to have to move you over just a little bit. So I really don't want to get dye on you. There you go. I think she'll be good. All right, here we go. It's going to be hard to see at the very beginning and the very end, but so the cotton tends to eat the dye a little bit faster than the Tencel. I have to spread the dye out a little bit more quickly. Oh, I put those a little bit too close together, but that's okay. It's at the very beginning, so. This is like when I try to do weaving demos and talk to people at the same time. It's hard for me to do 2 things at once. And so this is at the very beginning of the warp, so here we go. But yeah, so the cotton tends to cling to the dye particles a little bit more than the Tencel. The Tencel has a little bit more forgiveness in spreading the dye out. You have to kind of pay attention a little bit more to what's going on in the underside with the cotton than with the Tencel, because the Tencel tends to let that dye soak through from one side to the other a little bit easier than the cotton, especially the unmercerized cotton that I use. All right, we're going to spread those colors out just a little bit more. It's red, yellow, and if you've watched me before, you know I do a lot of my dye color transitions directly on the yarn with a brayer. I used to actually mix steps of color, so instead of just having the 3, I might have mixed a series of the primary colors and then like 50-50 blends stepping in between to try to make that transition a little bit more smooth. And I just found not only was it not really necessary, but doing it this way directly on the yarn, I can shorten the transitions a little bit easier. So I like these colors to repeat a little bit more frequently with these colorways so that you have a lot of color transitions going throughout. And when I mix too many colors, it tends to spread that out too much. See, red, yellow, blue. I need to be careful that I keep my colors in the cups in the order that I'm going to pour them, because you stop paying attention, you pour pour the color in the wrong place, you have a blooper warp, which happens from time to time. If you've ever seen in my shop, I have blooper yarns. A lot of times it's when I'm demonstrating painting or I'm listening to a really good podcast and I don't pay attention and I pour something in the wrong place. Or, I don't know, a color just doesn't spread out the way it's supposed to, or a dye doesn't do what it's supposed to. Most of my bloopers are, if the problem is in the dye, they're still really good. There's just something that makes them a little bit unusual to what's typical. The other thing I do is break a thread from time to time, but I think I have too many bloopers in the shop right now. They've been bought up, but they appear from time to time. Let's see here. Do a little bit more here. So for those of you, I'll just kind of talk this through while I'm painting, because otherwise I'm just painting in silence and I can't handle that for some reason. Some of you may have noticed, for those of you who buy bulk yarn from me, that I've taken the 8-2 Tencel out of my store. And the reason I've done that is, or I'm talking about the big cones, the big 5.5 pound cones. I still have the undyed warps and skeins available, but I had to take the big cones out because I am running a little bit low. And with all of these new tariffs in place, I order my yarn from a mill in Canada. I don't think I'm going to be able to afford to purchase new yarn anytime soon. I still have quite a bit of 5-2 Tencel, so I'm not too concerned about that. But the 8-2 Tencel, I kind of need to hoard for the time being until I can figure out another way to go about it. All right. Boop, 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 boop. This is one of my favorite colorways. Just love rainbows. All right, move these aside, wrap this up and move it forward. I'm painting 4 warps currently. That's my favorite number of warps to paint in this way at a time. What kind of dye do I use for Tencel? I use Procyon MX dyes for everything I do in the studio. That's the only dyes I have currently. They work very well on any sort of cellulose fiber, so cotton and rayon or Tencel, also linen, ramie, name your plant. It works really well. I think some people also use Procyon MX on basket making supplies, reeds, and the like. Oh, this tape's being stubborn today. There we go. I've found that I can't say that I've experimented with too many other dyes, but I've been very happy with the quality of MX dyes. They're very vibrant on cellulose fiber. They can be used on silk fiber, and I've done that in the past, but they're not as vibrant on silk fibers. I'm not as much a fan of using them on silk. And I've read somewhere that you can actually use them as an acid dye, but I have no idea what that would do. So if somebody's ever used, all right, I'm gonna lift. Here's where I'm going to experiment with not ripping my plastic wrap. There we go. I've twisted it up and I'm pulling out some more plastic wrap and pulling out some more yarn to dye. And so far the rack method is a little bit wonky. Wait. No, it's something I'm still working on. I use the plastic wrap to keep the yarn wet, to keep the dye wet on the yarn. The dye takes some time to activate when you paint it, and it only activates when wet. So this yarn has been scoured and washed really good, especially the unmercerized cotton. It has to be pretty much boiled in soapy water with some soda ash to break down all of the plant waxes, which will resist the dye. And then I pre-soak it. After I wash it, I pre-soak it in a strong soda ash solution, which raises the pH and allows the yarn, or allows the dye to activate on the yarn. There we go. All right, well, the drying rack holding the yarn prevented the plastic wrap from ripping, but made it a little more difficult to stretch out the yarn. We'll figure it out. There we go. Starting with, we left off with blue. Go ahead and pour a little more dye out. These dyes that I'm using, I'm calling them paints because I'm painting them on the yarn, but they're essentially just dyes that I've diluted to a particular amount, which I have a recipe that I use, and then paint it on the yarn. Some of my paints are paler. These are pretty dark. All right, let's pour a little bit more blue here. I have all of these recipes available in my online workshop. If you're already in that workshop and you haven't had a chance to look in that classroom yet, I'd take a look. I have handouts with all of the recipes in it, including my recipe for Mardi Gras, which I'll let you in on a little secret. The Mardi Gras recipe and the Fall Maples recipe are very, very, very similar. It's mostly just the Fall Maples uses warm colors, warm red, yellow, and blue toned with bronze. And the Mardi Gras uses cool red, yellow, and blue toned with black. And that's it. And I even paint them in the same order. Mardi Gras and Fall Maples were my first two colorways, and for obvious reasons. I just started with red, yellow, and blue and added a toner, and that gave me so much to work with. So there we go. How are we doing? Yellow, blue, red. Okay. Had a moment of fear where I thought maybe I poured in the wrong order there. I push the dye back and forth, and then I also push it across. So, I wonder how everybody's doing today. I'm very, 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 very happy that we are finally through February. February is one of my least favorite months. March brings spring and seed planting in the basement, which I haven't done yet. Except I did start some bok choy in the basement, which will actually be ready to harvest pretty soon. This one didn't spread out though. There we go. Red, yellow. If you've watched any of my my short reels of me painting yarn, it's probably quite different to watch me paint in real time, because it actually takes quite a lot longer than those reels make you think. There we go. Addie, how you doing over there? She looks pretty relaxed. I think she's enjoying herself. She might be bored. Well, Liam, the boy who Addie belongs to, has come in my studio from time to time and painted. He loves using up my old dye on yarn in my studio. I have some videos back in October, I think. He came in during his fall break and painted some yarn with me. And despite the results looking like it was going to be mostly just black yarn, because he doesn't really go by, he doesn't really paint for where the colors are going to land as much as paint until I run out of paint to give him. And so all the colors end up looking like a muddy mess, but they end up washing out really pretty. I'm really looking forward to weaving with this unmercerized cotton more. I see a lot of really interesting potential in it. But there is something really satisfying about painting Tencel, because you just can't make it ugly no matter what. You can dump every color I have in my refrigerator on some yarn willy-nilly until it's puddles, and it's still pretty in the end. Well, just a little, I don't know if you can see it, there's just a little bit of resistance here. I boiled this yarn really hot, but every once in a while I'll get an air bubble and it might not have gotten all the plant wax out there that it should have, so we'll see how that comes out in the end. I may have packed my pot with too much yarn. I always think I can fit just a little bit more in that pot than I can, and then I suffer the consequences later. There we go. I'm just going to keep it going. Anybody still watching? Got a couple people. All right, I'm going to move this yarn one more time. I take a rag, clean up some of the excess so it doesn't drip all over the place. Try to reuse this tape when I can. It doesn't always work. It just keeps the plastic from shifting around a whole bunch, which is kind of annoying when you're trying to push a brayer on yarn if the whole thing keeps shifting on you. So the tape doesn't have to hold super well, it's just there to assist. There we go. Oh, there's one more piece of tape. Probably should keep my gloves on for the entirety of this, but it is a little bit difficult to manipulate some of these things with gloves on. I have these really heavy-duty gloves that are wonderful if you need to reach briefly into a pot of boiling water, but they make it a little bit difficult to handle things. Uh-oh, that sounded like the plastic ripping. Yep. I got this roll of plastic wrap. It's 3,000 square feet or something crazy. And I got it from Sam's Club. And I was really excited because I thought, well, I'm not going to have to buy plastic wrap forever. And it's extra wide. But then it turns out it tears really easy and it's really difficult to work with. And I now have this giant roll, this never-ending roll of plastic wrap. that I am kind of stuck with, and I've been stuck with for a long time. Calm your plastic. There we go. Okay, so the drying rack yarn method maybe isn't totally effective, but there we go. Someday I will have a table long enough that I don't have to do this, or I'll have a couple of tables set up so that I don't have to keep stretching out more and more, but it works. I just need a roll of plastic wrap that doesn't rip, or better yet, I would cut some drop cloth to length so that I could keep reusing the plastic too. I just haven't done it. I think the last time I tried to do it, I opened up a drop cloth and tried to cut it, and they're folded weird, and I ended up cutting it the wrong way, and it didn't work out. You almost need two people to do that. I'm actually getting pretty close to the end. All right. Pour a little more paint. Some of my colorways that don't repeat in a straight pattern. So this one is red, yellow, blue, red, yellow, blue. If they are transposed patterns, if they went, like my fall maples goes red, yellow, blue, yellow, red, which is why it's not a rainbow, because red and blue never meet. So you don't get purple. But those you can actually fold back and forth and paint in one sort of accordion folded yarn. You don't have to stretch it out and paint it this way. You could potentially paint this in a circle. I don't like painting, if I wrap my yarn around in a circle, then I could get it to repeat in a straight pattern, but then it's a little bit harder to control how long the shifts in the color are across the warp. This lets me paint it evenly across, whereas if it's bent around in a circle, it sort of shifts as the warp winds around a circle. So I'm just, spiel. This is why I put drop cloths down. I've just been happiest with this method, even though it is quite slow. Because it is a slow method, I try not to paint just one or two warps at a time, because I get a little bit more for my effort if I paint more than one or two. But then, if I make a mistake, I ruin more than one or two. I love these little pour cups. They have a really nice pour spout on all three sides. It doesn't matter which way you orient the cup. I've mentioned it before. If I ever have a chance to order more supplies from my store, I think I'm going to try to add these to the inventory, because I'm really fond of these cups. I originally got my cups from the Indiana University surplus store. I think they might have been for urine collection. I'm pretty sure the cups I bought were new. Let's hope. They're pretty disinfected by now, I'm sure. But they're called tri-pour cups. They're really nice. You can't really measure with them. They have measure markings on the side, but they're very difficult to read. Let's see. Let's do. How are we doing on time? It's 1:30. I'm just going to paint to the very end. You could stick with me if you'd like. There we go. Can you guys hear the dogs barking above me? I'm hoping this new microphone picks my voice up and not so much the dogs above me, but they're just a presence. If you've kind of followed along with me over the past year, you know that we've been working on building a new house out on our farm. So it's just looks like a house kind of popped up in our cornfield. It's nearly complete. We might even be starting to move into it this month. Mostly just depending on if we can get water hooked up in our house. Once we do that, we can start moving in. Once we do that, I'm hoping to set up some of my weaving looms in our old house. It's a really old house with some issues, but it would be really fun to get out my looms and start weaving again. I really haven't been weaving much, and part of the problem is I don't really have a whole lot of space to weave in currently. For some reason, the kids wouldn't let me take over the house. I'm going to go ahead and shift this real quick. It's a little bit difficult to weave around the 6-year-old and the 2-year-old. The 6-year-old could probably, I would love to teach him how to weave. And I might try to teach him on a table loom. I have a little Structo somewhere in the back of my shed. Might bring it out and try to teach him how to use it sometime soon. But the 2-year-old, he's very active, and I really don't think a warp would survive him. He's active, and he's stubborn. So if you tell him, please don't do that, he's going to do it twice as hard. So, yeah. All right. Here comes the last of my warps. This is 6-yard warps that I'm painting right now. I have an order for 12-yard warps in Fall Maples Rainbow, and actually 3-yard warps as well. So I'm hoping to get some more fall maples in the shop soon too. There we go. Boop, boop, boop. All right. This is the last of the warp. looks like there's only 2 of you watching currently, but if you have any other questions, please let me know. If you're watching this later on, just put them in the comments and I'll come back and answer them later. It's a bit of an odd time to be doing live sessions, I know, but I go by a preschool schedule. Not sure what I'm going to do this summer. When all the kids come home. If you're watching this now or later or whenever you're watching it, let me know if you want to see more of these. I thought it might be kind of fun to do, to paint people's orders live, but from time to time. Red. See, I can't talk and paint at the same time. Good thing I didn't choose to do the 12-yard warp first. I'd only be halfway done. Coming up on the finish line, coming up on the crosses. This is silly, but I always paint the cross end last. And the reason I do that is because in my mind I figure it's the least likely yarn you're going to weave because the cross end goes on the back of the loom. And if for some reason I do something silly and it doesn't quite come out, or if I run out of a color, and the very end of the yarn doesn't quite come out the way it's supposed to, this end isn't really going to get woven anyway, so. But I will paint it all the way to the end, regardless. So there's my cross. Am I still in frame? I'm still in frame. Boop, boop. And blue. I don't think you can see me paint this end, but I am painting the very end of the yarn right now. I am. And with that, I'm done. So I'm just going to wrap that up, and I'm going to let that sit until the next time I come in the studio. Typically, I like to leave the dye on the yarn to rest for at least a day. It could be, I think I put down 18 to 24 hours is ideal. Kind of depends on the temperature. I've been bringing my yarn home after I dye it because my studio, I'm discovering, is a little too cold for my blues to set correctly. So I have to bring all of this yarn home that I dye to sit, and then I have to bring it back to studio to wash it out. It's a little bit cumbersome, which is another reason why it might be nice to move my studio home so that I don't have to keep dragging things back and forth when the temperature isn't working out for me. So that pretty much concludes the dye. Come your phone. Hi. So thanks for sticking with me. Is that a printmaking roller? It is indeed. It is a printmaking roller. So if you have one of these, they work great. They actually, the dye doesn't even permanently stick to it. So you can, if you wash it off, you can still use it for printmaking. But I find the speedball rollers are my favorite. I've ordered some from Amazon, and the Amazon ones have they have little bars that stick out on the sides that sometimes catch on your yarn. The speedball ones, especially the plastic ones with the removable roller, are fairly flush on the sides, and so they don't catch your yarn, and they work really well. They're just there for pushing the dye back and forth. But anyway, I'm gonna go paint some more fall maples on some more yarn. Addie is gonna go find a nice dry clean place to sit. So take care, Addie. Take care, friends. And hopefully I'll see you at the next Wednesday Live, barring any difficulties with sick children. Take care.